your duty in the world with one hand, and with the other hold to God. When the duty is past, you will hold to God with both hands. Remember that everything that happens in this world is part of God's great plan, running through all time. Hope is like the wing of an angel soaring up above and bearing our prayer to the throne of God. Cultivate great love. Love is great wealth. He that loveth little prayeth little. He who loveth a lot prayeth a lot. Bound creatures entangled in the worldliness will not come to their senses at all. They suffer so much misery. They face many dangers, and yet they will not wake up. They're like the camel. The camel eats thorny bushes, and its mouth gushes with blood, and the more he eats the thorny bushes, the more the blood gushes from its mouth. Still he must go on eating these thorny plants, and will not give them up. The man of worldly nature suffers much sorrow, but he forgets it all in a few days and starts life all over again. The worldly man is like a snake trying to swallow a mole. The snake can neither swallow the mole nor give it up. Many bound souls realize that the world is mere illusion, froth and bubble, stone and skin, and yet they cannot give it up and turn their mind to God. A characteristic of a bound soul is he would pine away if he was removed to spiritual surroundings. As a worm that grows on a filth pile thrives, and it would die in a pot of pure rice. So live in the world, do all your duties in the world. Don't preach to others. Let no man try to tell others what to do until he has taken full stock of himself. It is not possible for man to liberate others from the bondage of this world. He must be strengthened with divine strength to save others from the prison house of the world. He must have a direct call from God. So do your duties in the world. Fill your mind with thoughts of God. Fill your heart with love of God. There never has been a great and beautiful character without first fulfilling the humbler offices of the work of God. Meditation is a wonderful tonic that helps you on the way. It turns up all the systems and organs of the body. It renovates the cells, removes diseases. It checks development of diseases and prolongs life beyond exception. But you must prolong that meditation. In meditation you attain the eternal light and intuition. You gain knowledge that bliss is the essential nature of man. The central fact of man's being is his inherent divinity. Man's essential nature is divine, but awareness has been lost because of his animal propensities and the veil of ignorance. Man, in his ignorance, identifies with the body, the mind, and the senses. Transcending these, he becomes one with Brahman or the Absolute, who is pure bliss. Brahman or the Absolute is the fullest reality, the completest consciousness, that beyond which there is nothing. That which is the innermost self of all is Atma or Brahman. The Atma is common consciousness in all beings. A thief, a prostitute, a scavenger, a king, a rogue, a saint, a dog, a cat, a rat, all have the same common Atma. There are differences in colours and opinions, but Atma is the same in all. If you are very rich, you can own a steamer, a train, an airship of your own, for your own selfish aims. But you cannot have an Atma of your own. Atma is common to all. It is not an individual's soul-registered property. The Atma is the one amidst the many. It is the constant amidst all the forms that come and go. It is the pure, absolute, essential consciousness of all, of conscious beings. The source of all life, the source of all knowledge is Atma, thy innermost self. This Atma is transcendent, inexpressible, unthinkable, indescribable, and ever peaceful. Atma is bliss. Bliss is Atma. God, peace, perfection, immortality, Atma are all one. And the goal of life is God, peace, perfection. And the nearer you come to this truth, so the happier you will be. For the very nature of truth is bliss. Now you cannot attain this from the finite. This comes from the infinite self. And that man who has realized the self, he has the highest knowledge, infinite peace, inexhaustible bliss. Deep as the sea is eternal knowledge. Deep as the ocean is eternal life. Nothing can destroy it. Nothing can harm me. This is Satchitananda. Existence, knowledge, bliss absolute. Where the sun does not shine, where wind does not blow, where the moon does not shed its rays, where the stars do not twinkle, where fire cannot burn, where death doth not enter, where misery has no access. This is the supreme abode, the bliss of existence. It is supreme bliss, the perfect, the eternal, the ever-auspicious, adored by the divinities, the goal of all yogis. Attaining that, they do not return to this world and the world process. Oh man, wake up from this slumber of ignorance. Realize these eternal truths that have been repeated from age to age, right through the centuries. For from ancient times all saints and sages have been calling to man to wake up from this slumber of ignorance and to realize that there is a great life, a great power, a great joy, a great glory, a great wisdom to be experienced when once you turn from worldly things and give yourself to spiritual life. But in this 20th century, man is just as much attached or steeped in worldliness as what he was centuries ago. Man is just as apathetic and lethargic to life in the spirit as what he was from the beginning of time. God is spirit. God is man's inner self. In the Gita, the blessed Lord says, he who knows me to be unborn and beginningless and the great Lord of all worlds, that mortal is undeluded and liberated from all sin. For I am the source of all things, from me everything evolves. The wise worship me, endowed with meditation, with their lives absorbed in me, with their minds absorbed in me, ever enlightening at others, ever speaking of me. They are happy and contented. To them who are steadfast in their devotion to me, I bring the yoga of discrimination that brings them to me. Out of mere compassion for them, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy the darkness born of ignorance by the luminous lamp of knowledge. And he who possesses this lamp of knowledge, he neither irritates the world nor is irritated by the world. He works for me whether in honour or dishonour, never swerving from the path of devotion. Know for sure, I dwell in him, and he dwells in me. With a heart serene and fearless and established in the vow of brahmacharya, sitting in yoga with me as the goal, that yogi attains the peace abiding in me and culminating in nirvana. Yoga is not for he who eats too much nor too little, nor he who sleeps too much nor too little. Yoga is for he who is moderate in all things, His eating, his drinking, his sleeping, his wakefulness, his recreation, even his efforts to work. Then yoga is the destroyer of all misery. With the heart serene and freed from all longings and desires, and the mind resting in the self alone, that yogi is said to be steadfast in the self alone. And just as a lighted lamp set in a sheltered spot from the wind does not flicker, so the simile is used of that yogi who is steadfast in the self alone. When the mind that has been restrained by the practice of concentration sees the self by the self and is satisfied with the self, and feels the infinite bliss as perceived by purified intellects, and having reached this plane of consciousness, he knows it to be the highest acquisition. Let this be known as a state of yoga. It's a complete severance with all contacts of pain, abandoning without restriction all desires born of impressions, and restraining by the mind itself that group of senses to objects in all directions, with the intellect set in patience and the mind resting on the self, attain quietude by degrees. And verily I say unto thee, that peace will come to that yogi, a tranquil mind, passions quietened, Brahma become, free of taints, yet constantly engaging the mind thus. He sees me in all things, and all things in me. Of him I will never lose hold, and he will never lose hold of me. Become a liberated sage in this very life. Know thyself, and you will know the world and the gods. Attain self-realization. This is the greatest form of service you can render to the world. Realize that thou art Brahman, which is beyond time and space, which is supreme, changeless, eternal, infinite, all-pervading, eternal, unconditional, indivisible, consciousness and bliss. God is the ultimate. He is the only one. He is the abode of fullness and perfection. This is the highest truth, the law of absoluteness, where the soul goes from one plane of consciousness to a higher plane of consciousness until it reaches its perfection and becomes one with God. Do you remember Jesus Christ said, "Be as perfect as thy Father which art in heaven." So never forget, an ethically perfected, morally purified, spiritually illumined soul is the goal. And to attain to this state, the Lord exhorts to man to spiritualize all his actions. And of the three qualities that go to make up the nature of man, sattva is the nearest to this perfection. So yoga says, cultivate sattva, reduce rajas, and avoid tamas altogether. Convert tamas into rajas and convert rajas into sattva, and then go beyond the qualities of nature. A sage dwells on the firm rock of his God realization amidst the ever-flowing current of sattva, rajas and tamas. He neither runs from one nor courts the other. He knows that they belong to a realm in which he appears to be, but in which he has no part. For he has no attachment to the body, no identification whatever with the body. He feels, I am all pure, self-luminous Atma. To know the self is to enjoy eternal bliss and everlasting peace. Self-realization bestows eternal existence, absolute knowledge, and perennial bliss. None can be saved without self-realization. The quest for the absolute should be undertaken, even sacrificing the nearest and dearest object, even life, even courting all pain. The study of philosophical books, is of no avail. People study these books and these classics on religion and philosophy through many lifetimes, and they still don't know how to realize God. The way is, strive to have continuous unbroken thought of God. Spiritualize all your activities and become an abode of all virtues. You can study philosophical books as much as you like, deliver lectures throughout the whole world. You can remain in a cave for 100 years, practice pranaramas for 50 years. But you cannot attain emancipation without the realization of the oneness of the self. The oneness of the self, the oneness of existence, is reality. The realization of this reality is liberation. Liberation is a breaking down of all the barriers that constitute separate existence. Liberation is a state of absolute being, where the unity of all-pervading, all-permeating consciousness is realized with certainty, just as you could see a piece of fruit held in the palm of your hand. Liberation is not the attainment of liberation from an actual state of bondage, but is the realization of the liberation which really exists. It is freedom from the false notion of bondage. The individual soul feels itself to be in bondage on account of ignorance, caused by the power of Maya. But when the false belief caused by delusion is removed by knowledge of Atma, the state of liberation is realized then and there in this very life. The cause of delusion is desire in man. These desires generate thought waves, and the thought waves veil the real nature of the soul, which is blissful, immortal, and eternal. When the desires are annihilated, knowledge of Brahman dawns in the individual. While ever there is desire and egoism, you cannot have the highest knowledge. While ever there are desires, you cannot have calm meditation, because the mind is always clouded by the smoke of the aftermath of desire. And that man who has a strong sense of egoism can never be liberated. Nirvana is conscious immortality, to be aware of the divine spirit within, the God within, the great reality within all beings. And that man who is addicted to the pleasures of the world, he looks upon the bliss of nirvana as nothing, and he gives preference to worldliness over the final state of bliss of others. Such a man is termed an energetic and active man of the world, and so he remains through many, many lifetimes, until at last he gains a slightly better birth, where he is enabled to strive for liberation. But that man who realizes the nothingness of the world, who realizes his own unimportant part in the world, he seeks ways and means of overcoming his passionate nature and turbulent mind. Do you ever stop to think that sooner or later we have to leave this earth plane? And therefore each and every one of you should take a daily ride on the raft of God perception. Prepare for that astral journey now, before the mortal body decays. Seek God's contact. Learn to commune with Him. Give up wicked counsels. Seek God's guidance. And so yoga unfolds a vast vista of divinity in matter that enables the devotee to express the loftiest aspects of divine life. By the constant practice of yoga, even the non-believer becomes aware of the divinity within. And this is the need of the hour, for each and every one of you to be awakened to the fundamental truths that lie dormant in your inner consciousness. Only then can we have peace on earth. Only then can we understand that great brotherhood of man, and fatherhood of God, and blessedness of peace, that unity of that one family in this one world. Lord, may it be thy will that I ever work for the uplift of suffering humanity, for I know that it's only by working for universal salvation that one can expect to be saved. It's only by working for universal peace that one can expect to have the highest knowledge.